In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, পরম করুণাময় অতিশয় দয়াবান আল্লাহর নামে শুরু করিলাম বিসমিল্লাহির রহমানির রহিম. Dear students, today I have come with a short story named The Luncheon, written by Somerset Maugham, and it is in Unit 3, lesson number 2. Dear students, at the beginning I would like to tell you that it's a short story, but it's an interesting thing that there are as many as 110 sentences, and I will read the sentences one by one, and after that I will have to explain that, so it will take a bit long time. That's why you are requested to listen the class carefully and with patience. And at the beginning of the lesson, I would like to tell you that it's a short story about a lady admirer who exploited our writer in a costly restaurant named Fires and Fars is a restaurant situated in France, and there only the French senators used to go. So it was so much costly, and general people never thought of going there. It was a terrible thing for the writer to entertain his guest in that restaurant, and he entertained the lady guest, and she ate the costly and delicious food one after another. And when the writer paid the bill, he found that there was no any money in his pocket. He did not have any money in the pocket, but he had the whole month ahead of him. So the cruelty was done to his tender heart, and it was actually a very bad thing. So the writer at last got revenge. Now let us see how the lady exploited the writer and how our writer got the revenge. The story The Luncheon was written by William Somerset Maugham, and he was born in 1875 and he died in 1965. The story has been started like that. I caught sight of her at the play, and in answer to her beckoning, I went over during interval and sat down beside her. Here the word I stands for the writer himself, that is, he saw her at the play, that is, they went to watch a play there, and she called our writer by using gesture, and with a view to responding to her gesture, the writer went during the interval and he sat down beside her. Then she started to speak like that. It was long since I had last seen her. He started to speak like that. It was long since I had last seen her, and if someone had not mentioned her name, I hardly think I would have recognized her. Then sitting beside her, the writer thought that if someone had not mentioned her name, he would not be able to recognize her, because she became very much changed, and that is, she gained weight. She got maturity, much more maturity, and that is why a radical change was on her body. So the writer was not able to recognize her at the beginning, but later on someone mentioned her name and he could recognize her clearly. She addressed me brightly, that is, she started to speak loudly, speak happily. Well, it's many years since we first met. How time does fly. We are none of us getting any younger. Do you remember the first time I saw you? You asked me to luncheon. Did I remember? The lady started by pronouncing the word well, and she also said that they met many years ago, and she also exclaimed that time flew very fast. We are none of us getting any younger. She also told that neither the writer nor she was getting any younger, that is, they were becoming older day by day. Do you remember the first time I saw? She asked the writer whether he could remember the first time they met. You asked me to luncheon. Now she reminded the writer that he invited her to a luncheon. Did I remember? This is the question asked by the poet, and he asked this question to himself. Now the writer has started to narrate the incident. It was 20 years ago and I was living in Paris. The writer has mentioned it clearly that it was a matter of 20 years ago, and during that time he was living in Paris. I had a tiny apartment in the Latin apartment overlooking a cemetery. Cemetery means graveyard. The writer was living in a small apartment, and from the apartment he could see the cemetery. That is, his cabin was adjacent to the graveyard. As long as he did not have sufficient money, he was not able to hire a good residence for him. So he could manage to hire a residence that was adjacent to the graveyard. And I was earning barely enough money to keep body and soul together. He was at the beginning of his career, so he did not have sufficient money, and the money he was earning, that was only sufficient to keep his body and soul together. That is, he was leading his life through hardship. She had read a book of mine and had written to me about it. The lady guest read a book of the writer and she appreciated about the book. And by appreciating, she wrote to the writer. I answered thanking her, and presently I received from her another letter saying that she was passing through Paris and would like to have a chat with me. Then the writer, being a generous young man, he answered, he replied the letter of the lady, and then immediately she got another letter from the lady guest, and she expressed her desire to have a chat with the writer. But her time was limited, and she was a cunning lady, so she mentioned it, and that her time was very much limited. That is, she did not have sufficient time, and the only free moment she had was on the following Thursday, and she would be able to meet the writer on the following Thursday. She was spending the morning at the Luxembourg, and would I give her a little luncheon at Paris afterwards. That is, to probe her busyness, the lady displayed logic that in the morning she would be in Luxembourg, and at lunch she was willing to be entertained by the writer in a restaurant named Fires, and Fires is a costly restaurant. Now let us see what is Fires. Fires is a restaurant at which the French senators sit, and it was so far beyond my means that I had never even thought of going there. That is, Fires is a costly restaurant. Only the French senators used to go there. Say, in our Bangladesh, there is a restaurant adjacent to the parliament, and only the ministers go there. So, general people would never thought of going there. Exactly like this, only the French senators used to visit the restaurant named Fire. So, general people like the writer never thought of going there. But I was flattered, and I was too young to have learned to say no to a woman. The writer was at the initial stage of his life, so being a young man, he was not able to say no to a woman because he had a strong passion to meet a lady, and he thought that she would be a teenage girl. I had 80 francs, gold francs, so to last me the rest of the month, and a modest luncheon should not cost more than 15. That is, when he came to know that a lady was going to meet him, he then started to fly in the sky depending on his rosy wings. That is, he fabricated so many romantic stories. He was going to meet a lady for the first time in his life, so he became very much enthusiastic. If I cut out coffee for the next 2 weeks, I could manage well enough. Then he calculated whether he would be able to manage. Then he somehow could reach to the final decision that he would be able to maintain the situation easily if he could cut out coffee for the next 2 weeks. I answered that I would meet my friend by correspondence at Fires on Thursday at 12:30. Then the writer told her that he was willing to meet her at 12:30 in the restaurant named Fires. She was not so young as I expected, and in appearance imposing rather than attractive. The writer was expecting that she would be an attractive lady, but seeing her he was actually taken aback because he was not a young lady, rather she was a woman of 40. She was in fact a woman of 40, a middle-aged woman, and she gave me the impression of having more teeth, white and large and even, than were necessary for any practical purpose. The lady was the owner of bulky and ugly appearance, and the writer was not attracted at all to her. Rather, she was horribly embarrassed by seeing her. Moreover, she opened her mouth wide and she displayed her large teeth white, and the writer could understand that her teeth were more than the necessity. She was talkative, but since she seemed inclined to talk about me, I was prepared to be an attentive listener. Then the writer discovered that she was a talkative lady and really very much troublesome, but the writer found that she was inclined to talk about him, so he took preparation to be an attentive listener. I was startled when the bill of fare was brought, for the prices were a great deal higher than I had anticipated. But she assured me. The writer saw the bill of fare. Then, seeing that, he was terribly frightened because the prices of the food items were very much high, and he never imagined that it would be so much costly. But she reassured me. I never eat anything for luncheon, she said. For the first time, she pronounced a sentence. I never eat anything for luncheon, she said. Now, the viewers and the students, it's an irony that the sentence, I never eat anything for luncheon, I never eat more than one thing for luncheon, these type of sentences, she will be pronouncing over and over again. That is for about 15 times. She would pronounce the words and she would continue to eat one after another item of food. Firstly, she spoke, I never eat anything for luncheon, she said. Oh, don't say that, I answered generously. When she said, I never eat anything for luncheon, then the writer tried to console her by telling that, don't speak like that. I never eat more than one thing. I think people eat far too much nowadays. A little fish perhaps. I wonder if they have any salmon. Just after telling I never eat more than one thing, she pronounced the word salmon. That is, she expressed her desire to eat salmon. Well, it was early in the year for salmon and it was not on the bill of fare, but I asked the waiter if there was any. The name of the salmon was not listed in the menu. So the writer asked the waiter if there was any. Yes, a beautiful salmon had just come in. It was the first they had had. I ordered it for my guest. The waiter asked her if she would have something while it was being cooked. Then the writer ordered for salmon, and while the salmon was being cooked, the waiter asked the lady guest whether she would eat anything or not. No, she answered, I never eat more than one thing. Unless you have a little caviar, I never mind caviar. That is for the third time. The lady guest answered, I never eat more than one thing, or I never eat anything, and telling that she expressed her desire to eat caviar, another costly item of food. My heart sank a little. That is, the writer was terribly frightened. I know I could not afford caviar. Caviar is a costly item of food, so the writer understood that he would not be able to pay the bill of caviar. But I could not very well tell her that she was a stranger to the writer, so he did not feel comfort to tell her that he would not be able to pay the cost of caviar. I told the waiter by all means to bring caviar. Then the writer ordered caviar for her. For myself, I chose the cheapest dish on the menu, and that was a mutton chop. The writer decided to eat mutton chop because the writer was supposed to pay the bill. The lady guest was not in a position to pay the bill, so to save money, the writer decided to eat the cheapest dish on the menu. That was the mutton chop. I think you are unwise to eat meat, she said. I don't know how you can expect to work after eating heavy things like chops. I don't believe in overloading my stomach. Then came the question of drink. Then, when the writer ordered for mutton chop for himself, then this abandoned lady started to criticize him bitterly. That is, she humiliated the innocent writer by telling that she was not able to believe how a person could desire to work after overloading the stomach. Then the question of drinking came. I never drink anything for luncheon, she said. Here, it's a mockery, it's an irony that the abandoned lady told that she never took anything for luncheon. Neither do I answered promptly. When she said, I never drink anything for luncheon, the writer promptly told that he also was not in the habit of drinking anything except white wine. She proceeded as though I had not spoken. Then she expressed her desire to drink white wine, and she told that in such a way so that the writer actually did not tell anything. These French white wines are so light. They are wonderful for the digestion. Now, in this sentence, the abandoned lady guest has started to appreciate the white wines. She told that these white wines were very much useful for the digestion. What would you like? I asked hospitable still, but not exactly effusive. Effusive means impulsive. That is, right now, the writer was not very much inclined to her at all. Even then, he asked her what she was going to drink. She gave me a bright and amicable flash of her white teeth. By opening her mouth widely, she displayed her teeth again, and she told that my doctor won't let me drink anything but champagne. Then, by mentioning the decision of the doctor, she told that she was in a position to drink champagne only, another costly item of drink. I fancy I turned a triple pale. Here, the writer has mentioned the word fancy, that is, he anticipated that maybe he became white, maybe he became pale because she pronounced the word champagne. It was another costly item of food, and it was really a terrible thing for the writer. I ordered half a bottle. I mentioned casually that my doctor had absolutely forbidden me to drink champagne. Here, the writer carefully mentioned that his doctor won't let him drink champagne because he was not in a position to pay the bill of the champagne. So he ordered half a bottle champagne for his guest. What are you going to drink then? Water. Then she asked what he was going to drink. Then the writer plainly answered that he was going to drink water. She ate the caviar and she ate the salmon. Now by this time she has completed her eating caviar and salmon, the costly items of food. She talked gaily of art and literature and music. She was in a happy mood, so she discussed about literature, she discussed about art and music. But I wondered what the bill would come to. Now, she was in a happy mood, but our writer was not, because he was supposed to pay the bill, so he was not able to overcome the anxiety, and he was thinking whether he would be able to pay the bill or not. When the mutton chop arrived, she took me quite seriously to task. That is, when the mutton chop of the writer arrived, she started to humiliate. That is, she became very much angry with the writer for overloading his stomach. I see that you are in the habit of champagne. I see that you are in the habit of eating a heavy luncheon. Then when the mutton chop arrived, she criticized the writer by telling that she saw that the writer was in the habit of eating heavy luncheon, and she did a mistake. She also told that it was a mistake. Why don't you follow my example and just eat one thing? She again did the mockery by telling that just eat one thing. She already took a lot of costly items of food, but she is telling that she was in the habit of eating only one item. I am sure you would feel ever so much better for it. Now, she has also mentioned it that if someone could take little item of food, he or she would feel comfort, he or she would feel better. Only going to eat one thing, I said. And the waiter came again with the bill of fare. She waved him aside with an airy gesture. The writer said that he was going to eat only one thing, that is his mutton chop. And when he said that he was going to eat only one thing, then she waved the waiter aside, that is by using gesture, he pushed him aside. No, no, I never eat anything for lunch and just a bite. She told that this is for the ninth time. She told that she never eat anything. That is, she has pronounced the sentence, I never eat anything for lunch and just a bite. She told that she was in the habit of eating only a bite. I never want more than that and I eat that more as an excuse for conversation than anything else. Actually, she told that she was not in the habit of eating anything at luncheon. Only if she gets any way of talking or having a conversation with anybody, on the plea of conversation, she eats something. That is only one item of food. She was telling that I couldn't possibly eat anything more unless they had some of those giant asparagus. Now again, the voracious, greedy woman expressed her desire to eat another costly item of food, that is asparagus. I should be sorry to leave Paris without having some of them. Then she also, to support her desire, expressed that she would feel sorry if she was to leave Paris without having asparagus. My heart sank little. By hearing the name of the asparagus, the heart of the writer was sunk. I had seen them in the shops and I know that they were horribly expensive. The writer saw the asparagus in the restaurant and he knew that those were very much expensive. My mouth had opened water at the sight of them. The writer has mentioned it that he also wanted to eat asparagus, but due to the shortage of money, he was not able to eat. Madam wants to know if you have any those giant asparagus. I asked the waiter. The writer asked the waiter, I repeat, the writer asked the waiter if there was any asparagus, giant asparagus. I tried with all my might to will him to say no. The writer had an expectation that the waiter would say no, but it was not to be. A happy smile spread over his broad, priest-like face, and he assured me that they had some so large, so splendid, so tender, that was a marvel. Then the writer wanted that the waiter would say no, but unfortunately the waiter with a smiling face told that they had the giant asparagus and they were so large, they were so splendid, and they were so tender and very much magnificent asparagus were there. I am not in the least hungry, my guest sighed, but if you insist, I don't mind having some asparagus. Though the writer did not request her to eat asparagus, the abandoned lady was telling that he was insisting on her eating asparagus. The writer ordered for asparagus. Are not you going to have any? Then she asked the writer whether he was going to eat any asparagus. No, I never eat asparagus. The writer told that he was not in the habit of eating asparagus. Actually, he was not the owner of sufficient money, so he knew that he would not be able to pay the cost of it. So he expressed his desire that he was not able to eat any asparagus. I know there are people who don't like them. The fact is, you ruin your palate by all the meat you eat. She then started to criticize the writer by telling that she knew there are some people who are not in the habit of eating asparagus. Moreover, she mentioned that the writer actually ruined his palate by eating mutton chop. We waited for the asparagus to be cooked. Then the writer, along with the lady guest, was waiting for the asparagus to be cooked. Panic seized me. The writer was terribly frightened whether he would be able to pay the bill. That is, he was seized with panic. It was not a question now of how much money I should have left over for the rest of the month, but whether I had enough money to pay the bill. Initially, before coming to the restaurant, the writer was thinking that he would be able to manage the month somehow. Now, after coming to the restaurant, when the lady was exploiting him mercilessly, he was thinking whether he would be able to pay the bill of the hotel at present. The asparagus appeared, they were enormous, succulent, appetizing. The smell of the melted butter tickled the nostrils. When the asparagus appeared, the writer found them enormous, succulent, and appetizing, and the smell of the asparagus tickled the nostrils. Coffee, I said. Then the writer wanted to drink coffee. Yes, just an ice cream and coffee, she answered. Here, the abandoned lady guest did mockery and irony again by adding ice cream with the coffee. I was fast carrying now, so I ordered coffee for myself and an ice cream and coffee for her. Then the writer was not thinking whether he would be able to pay the bill or not, because she has done so much injustice to the writer. So she was not thinking whether he would be able to pay the bill or not. You know, there is one thing I thoroughly believe in, she said. As she ate the ice cream, one should always get up from a meal feeling one could eat a little more. Then the abandoned lady guest started to advise him that someone should stop eating in a position when he or she feel that he or she would be able to eat some more. That is, with a feeling of eating some more, someone should stop eating. Are you still hungry? I asked faintly. Then the writer asked her whether she was hungry or not. Oh no, I am not hungry, you see. I don't eat luncheon. Again, she pronounced the irony sentence. Then I don't eat luncheon. I have a cup of coffee in the morning and then dinner. She said that she had a cup of coffee in the morning and then dinner. That is during luncheon or during lunchtime. She was not in the habit of eating anything. But I never eat more than one thing for luncheon. Here she has mentioned it clearly that she never eat more than one thing for luncheon. I was speaking for you that she told that she was actually speaking for the writer. Oh, I see. Then a terrible thing happened. While we were waiting for the coffee, he had the head waiter with an irritating smile on his false face came up to us bearing a large basket full of huge peaches. Then a terrible thing happened. Then the head waiter came with a large basket full of peaches, another costly item of food. They had the blush of an innocent girl. The peaches were compared with the innocent girls. They had the rich tone of an Italian landscape. They were also compared with Italian landscape. But surely peaches were not in season. Then Lord know what they cost. The peaches were not in the season then, so the writer thought that these would be very much costly. You see, you have filled your stomach with a lot of meat, my one miserable little chop, and you can't eat anymore, but I have just had a snake and I shall enjoy a peach. Then the lady expressed her desire to another peach. The bill came, and when I paid it, I found that I had only enough for a quite inadequate tip. Then the writer paid the bill, and when he paid the bill, he found that he did not have sufficient money to give the waiter any money as tip. Her eyes rested for an instant on the 3 francs I left for the waiter, and I know that she thought me mean. When the writer gave that is only 3 francs, the lady guest was looking at the penny, so looking at the francs, and the writer thought that she considered him as a mean person. But when I walked out of the restaurant, I had the whole month before me and not a penny in my pocket. Then, after the completion of the paying the bill, the writer found that he did not have any money in his pocket, but he had the whole money ahead of him. Follow my example, she said as we shook hands, and never eat more than one thing for luncheon. Here the abandoned lady has done mockery and irony with the writer again by telling that follow my example and never eat more than one thing. She did again fun with the writer. I will do better than that, I retorted. I will eat nothing for dinner tonight. Then the writer answered quickly that he would not eat anything. That is, he became very much angry with her. Humorist, she cried gaily, jumping into a cave. You are quite humorist. Then, when the writer said that he would not eat anything at night, then she considered him as a humorist, and by calling him humorist, she jumped into a cave. But I have had my revenge at last. I don't believe that I am a vindictive man, but when the immortal gods take a hand in the matter, it is pardonable to observe the result with complacency. Today she weighs 21 stone. Here the writer in the final para is telling that the writer got the revenge at last because for her eating habit she gained weight. Now she is a woman of 21 stone. As long as she became very much bulky and ugly, the writer believes that he got his revenge. Now dear students, last of all I would like to tell you that the lady guest exploited the writer mercilessly, and for her exploitation the writer was terribly shocked. And last of all, after 20 years, when he saw her, he found her as a very much big-sized woman, and seeing that, the writer believed that he got his revenge. Now, in the previous class, I taught you A and B part of answer to the question number 1. Now, for your answer to the question number 2, I would like to tell you that there would be a flow chart, and in the flow chart, it would be written like that. Now write the food items taken by the lady guest one after another, and show the food items in the flow chart. In the flow chart, bosses are to be given definitely, and here I have prepared it. Say answer to the question number 2, and the first item is costly salmon, and secondly she took delicious caviar, and the third item white wine champagne, and the fourth food item she took, that was succulent asparagus, and the fifth item tasty ice cream, and the sixth item is a big peach. I have prepared the flow chart for you, and I repeat the names here again. Number 1 costly salmon, number 2 delicious caviar, number 3 white wine champagne, number 4 succulent asparagus, number 5 tasty ice cream, number 6 a big peach. Dear students, my time is over, so I am not going to prolong my talking anymore, and in the next time I would show you the question number 3, 4, etc., and hope you will remain fine. Until then, goodbye. Assalamu alaikum.